Thank you, Jeff. Today is a day America will never forget. 15 years ago this morning, 2 planes flew into the Twin Towers in New York City, another into the Pentagon, and a 4th crashed in Pennsylvania, an attack on the White House stopped by brave passengers. 2,977 people died, and CNN's Karen Caifa joins us live from New York City, where remembrances are taking place. Karen, good morning to you.
Good morning, Karina. You know, One World Trade Center behind me is just the most prominent example of so much rebuilding and revitalization that has taken place here in Lower Manhattan over the last 15 years. And among buildings like that, there are still points of reflection and remembrance for so many lives lost that day. The Freedom Tower now stands taller here than the Twin Towers did, and near a glittering monument of resilience, the memorial to nearly 3,000 Americans killed in the deadliest terror attack on U.S. soil exactly 15 years ago today. Commemorations of a solemn anniversary began days ago. On Friday, a parade to honor first responders at a ceremony here in Lower Manhattan.
On each 9/11 of each year, we look back and reflect.
In Washington, at the Justice Department,
a decade and a half has elapsed since 9/11. This is hard to believe, but it has.
And on the steps of the U.S. Capitol,
God bless America,
echoing a moment of unity in the wake of tragedy 15 years ago.
God bless America.
A CNN ORC poll released Friday finds Americans more angry and more fearful when they reflect on the events of 9/11 now than 5 years ago, perhaps because of terror attacks like Boston, San Bernardino, and Orlando since then, and the quick rise of ISIS. But this day is defined by remembrance, the somber traditions the same each year. Moments of silence for the minutes al-Qaeda hijackers steered airplanes into each World Trade Center tower and the Pentagon, and when Flight 93 crashed in Pennsylvania, and when each tower collapsed, the South then the North. And a reading of the names of those lost by the people who loved them and missed them 15 years on. And in respect for today's anniversary, both presidential candidates have agreed to stop their campaigning for the day. That extends to the airwaves. You won't see television advertisements of the political realm today. Both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump expected to pay their respects at Ground Zero a little later on today. Live in Lower Manhattan, I'm Karen Caifa. Karina, back to you.
All right, thank you, Karen, and we're going to check back in with Karen Caifa once again a little bit later in the show. We're going to talk more about the 9/11 remembrances happening today and how people are recovering 15 years after the attack. And you can see a list of events in remembrance of 9/11 happening here in Central Ohio. It's all on 10tv.com. Just search 9/11. Jeff.
And
Today, we are commemorating 9/11. Today marks the 15th anniversary of the attacks on the World Trade Center. CNN's Karen Caifa joins us now this morning from New York about the events that are happening there today. Good morning, Caifa. Talk a little bit about what is going on there today.
Good morning, Karina. We are starting to see some of the arrivals of some of the prominent figures who will be in attendance at today's official ceremonies at Ground Zero. That includes Donald Trump, the Republican presidential candidate, and also the Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton, who, of course, was the senator representing New York State on September 11th, 2001. Also in the crowd, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who was the mayor of this city on that day, and then Mayor Michael Bloomberg, who succeeded him shortly after. So a lot of people starting to gather. We're about 15 minutes or so away from a citywide moment of silence that commemorates the moment that that first plane hit the first tower of the World Trade Center at 8:46 a.m. There will be that citywide moment of silence, and also churches throughout the city will toll their bells.
And Karen, we can kind of see the commotion behind you there, and we can see what's been rebuilt in that area. Talk about what has changed in that area and how it's been built up 15 years later.
Absolutely. So much change down here in Lower Manhattan, Karina. And the was really a debate over how you really balance revitalizing this vital part of Manhattan, which includes the financial district. You know, it's not very far from the New York Stock Exchange, and how to revitalize it, but also remembering what happened here. And so you'll find that much like the rest of the island of Manhattan, there's been a tremendous amount of development on the retail side, on the residential side, bringing people back down here to lower Manhattan, but also making sure that there are plenty of spots where people remember what happened here. That, of course, most obviously includes the 9/11 Memorial with its reflecting pools and, of course, the museum that is around it, but also smaller parts. For example, the Queen Elizabeth Garden, which is a tiny garden not far from the Stock Exchange that commemorates British and Commonwealth citizens who were killed on 9/11. So it's the big memorials and it's these tiny parts where people can really reflect on what happened to this neighborhood 15 years ago today, and of course, moving onward.
Yeah, and that 9/11 memorial, it's just moving being there. I was there last year and just seeing that and seeing all the names of the people that died on 9/11. And now, Karen, talk about security. There's an added focus on security today, is that right?
Absolutely, as there is with any large event here in New York City. You know, we're talking about a security situation that would be similar to, albeit a very different kind of celebration, but similar to what we kind of saw on New Year's Eve in Times Square. Obviously, this is a very high-profile event for New York City, and you have a lot of prominent people here. As I mentioned, both presidential candidates, a number of former mayors. You have the current mayor, and also so many people who have come to pay their respects at the 9/11 Memorial. So you see a similar situation to what you see for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade or the New Year's Eve in Times Square, where there are barricades set up. The NYPD very much controlling the flow of pedestrian traffic and vehicular traffic, and very much keeping an eye on things to make sure that this celebration is very safe as people come here to pay their respects and pay tribute to so many lives lost 15 years ago today.
All right, Karen Kaifa reporting for us in New York City. Thank you, Karen, and we will look forward to looking at that moment of silence that Karen mentioned. That's coming up here at 8:45. Now, 10 TV spoke to a Columbus firefighter who was called out to help at Ground Zero. He says this time of year is a memory of those he lost and what he saw there.
I mean, it was apocalyptic. There's just a lot of adjectives you can use to describe it, but none of them really describe it to anybody who wasn't there.
There is a stair climb happening today to honor the firefighters who did not survive the attack. And that's happening right here in Columbus. 10 TV's Laura Borchers joins us from downtown Columbus with more on this event on 9/11. Laura?
Yeah, we're live right in front of the Chase Tower. This is a very special event here in Columbus. It is the Memorial Stair Climb, and we are seeing hundreds of people out here getting ready, registering, setting up their gear. And with us, we have Miss Mercer. Explain a little bit who you are, what you're with, and what this cause is all about.
Sure. I'm the founder of a nonprofit called 24/7 Commitment, which supports marriages and families for first responders, and we partnered with the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation for this year's Columbus Memorial Stair Climb. The stair climb is a tribute to the first responders that lost their lives on 9/11. The proceeds really support counseling and family services for firefighters today. That there's a lot of stress at the job still, and it's a big need.
And explain the steps that all of these people out here are about to climb and what they signify.
Sure. So 110 flights of stairs is what was climbed on 9/11 itself, and so we try to memorialize that by climbing the same. Chase Tower here downtown is about 24 stories, so we're going to do that 4-ish times to hit the same amount of stairs. And really, everybody wears a badge for one of the fallen firefighters on that day. So really, climbing every day in Thanksgiving and gratefulness for what they did for all of us.
It's about a little over an hour is what is budgeted for each person to make this climb. A really special event to mark 9/11 here today. And we have seen Columbus firefighters, we have seen Marietta firefighters, we have seen folks from all over, and we've also seen residents, people who may not be a part of a fire department but just wanted to come out and support this very important event. All of the proceeds are going to two very, very great charities. So if you still would like to join, people can still come out?
They sure can. It isn't like a 5K where there's a start time. You can still come out and join us in the next hour or two and climb your stairs. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Reporting live downtown, I'm Laura Borchers, 10 TV News.
Thank you, Laura. And there are many other events happening today commemorating 9/11 and the 2,996 people who died in the attack. You can find all that information by searching 9/11 on 10tv.com. Jeff. 8:45 the time right now. We're going to get a check on your weather in just a minute. But first, we want to take you live to New York City. There's a moment of silence marking the minute the first plane hit the World Trade Center in 2001, and you can see the commemorations happening there right now in New York as we remember 9/11, 15 years after that 2001 attack on U.S. soil. We'll bring you much more from New York in just a little bit, but first let's listen in on that moment of silence as to what's going on there right now.
Good morning. My name is Jerry Diamadeo. My dad, Vincent Diamadeo, worked in
And
the
once
North
again, this is happening right now, that moment of silence commemorating when that first plane hit the Twin Towers back in 2001. 2,997 people died in the 9/11 attacks. We'll check back in with New York City coming up here shortly. Right now, let's get a check on the local weather.